Let's slide into a division that's probably the worst in the league, the AFC South.
Yes. So Jacksonville, last year, what happened? Well, let's go back 2 years here. They had Urban Meyer, horrible. They replaced him with Doug Peterson, Super Bowl champion, and little clunky out of the gate, but then they went out, go into the playoffs. They faced the Chargers. First quarter, Trevor Lawrence looks horrible, throws 4 picks. Second half, they're down 27-0. He goes out, comes back, wins the game in historic fashion. And then this offseason, obviously, they traded Calvin Ridley at the deadline. He's ready to go. He's going to step in, be that number one, along with Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. Evan Ingram stepped into a big role last year. And they also drafted Tank Bigsby to go inside with Travis Etienne. Their defense looks like they made some additions there as well.
Yeah.
Overall sentiment with the Jags, I feel like they have to be a lock for that division win.
Yeah, I think they have to be a lock for that division because everything you mentioned there. So you have Urban Meyer sticking his finger in people's ass in bars in Ohio, of all places. His old stomping grounds. I get it. It's like an old dive bar that he used to go to.
Probably.
Great. Comes back, gives the whole conversation like, yeah, this is what happened, guys. Yada, yada, yada. Walks out. Everyone bursts out laughing. They're like, wow, this is the biggest joke ever. And then guy doesn't even know who Aaron Donald is. Oh, who's that number 99? We should probably put someone on him. You fucking think?
Best player of all time, arguably.
Yeah. And then, so you have that. And then Doug Peterson comes in, rebuilds Trevor Lawrence's confidence. And then we're like, all right, we're going to go out there, get Christian Kirk, get Evan Ingram, draft Travis Etienne. We get Tank Bigsby this year. So we have a legitimate punch in the backfield. And then we have Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, which is a pretty solid at receiver, and then Evan Ingram. So now we have that dynamic team. Everyone's saying Calvin Ridley looks dynamic, looks like himself. He's not coming off an injury. I don't think it's a running back situation where he's going to fall off like Le'Veon Bell did. So now he has a legitimate number one target to open up the field for him. And going back to that playoff game, that was some Andrew Luck shit. Like where Andrew Luck and Ben Roethlisberger alike will have these games.
Too.
Yeah, where they throw a bunch of interceptions and then they just keep going, keep chugging along, and then overcome it. And then Justin Herbert kind of just folding in that game and Trevor Lawrence stepping up and passing him. And then they're able to get to a game in Kansas City in the divisional round. So I think the Jags definitely overachieved last year to put themselves in position to potentially be the number one seed. And here's why. You're in the worst division in a loaded AFC. You play a pretty bad division. I believe they play the South as well this year.
Yep.
So they're playing the worst division in the NFC. So I think the Jags have a legitimate shot at home field advantage, and that humidity is going to play a factor. And I think this is the year where Trevor Lawrence is going to be like, Josh who? And I think he has the chance to do it.
I think this is the year he goes top 5.
Yeah.
He's going to be a top 5 quarterback. Could be in the MVP conversation.
For sure.
If you're the 1 seed, you have home field advantage. You win a playoff game. You looked incredible the last half of the season.
Yeah.
So, plus you have a play caller who, maybe he's not Andy Reid, but he's pretty fucking close to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he outcoached Bill Belichick in a Super Bowl
Yes,
with a backup quarterback. He deserves credit there. Doug Peterson's definitely no slouch at head coach. And you have a defense that has some talent there. You have an offense with a lot of weapons. And Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 overall pick basically 3 years in a row. Had he had gone when he was a freshman, sophomore, junior, would have gone number 1. He's one of those talents like an Andrew Luck, like a Peyton Manning, where he's highly regarded. I think this is the year that they make that leap. He's already passed Justin Herbert because of that game alone.
Yeah.
And now it's a top 5 conversation he's going to enter into this year.
Yeah, he's knocking on the door where if he plays Burrow and beats him, he has a legitimate case to be better than Burrow. Because if the Jaguars are the number 1 seed, and I believe with how easy their schedule is, they have the potential to be where they could sweep Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year with Calvin Ridley, and MVP with Trevor Lawrence. Because if you're the best quarterback on the best team and you have amazing stats, and I think he will this year, because he didn't turn the ball over, and that was the big improvement last year with Trevor Lawrence. Was, I believe he ended the year on like a 16-2 TD to pick ratio.
Yeah.
So I think this year it's like we got a lot of mojo on offense coming in.
And it's year 3. Look what happened last year 3. Jalen Hurts. He was pretty fucking good last year, was he not?
Yeah.
Second in the MVP, brought it to a Super Bowl. So Jags are on the come up. Other teams in that division, we got the Colts. Big changes there. They had Matt Ryan last year. They fired Frank Reich midseason, replaced him with Jeff Saturday, which has become the biggest mystery in NFL history on why they did that. Hired an ESPN analyst, got a win against the Raiders, and then lost out the rest of the way. In the draft, they go out and get Anthony Richardson, who was the highest ceiling quarterback, I think, of this draft. Everyone's super high on. Definitely a project, but we'll see how he is. They added Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator for the Eagles. He's looking pretty good. They have this Jonathan Taylor saga roaming over them. But overall, sentiment on the Colts, I think they're going to go in the right direction. They're going to improve from last year, but they're definitely not a playoff team.
Yeah, they're not a playoff team. I think they're in that like 6 to 9 win bubble where they may be competing for it at the end of the year and then run into some stiff competition. But I still think Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce aren't really the answer at receiver right now currently. And then if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, you probably have to slide someone in there like Kareem Hunt, which I think the Colts will, but they're trying to hang on to Taylor right now. But if they don't trade Jonathan Taylor, I think they have a really good shot to have a nice year with Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, kind of really build some fundamentals where we can make a big push in 2 or 3 years down the road, especially with how loaded the AFC is. You want to wait for like the Browns, Broncos to start to fall off when some of those contracts start to kick in. So I think next year, spend a ton of money. But you're right when you talk about the Jeff Saturday saga with this team, where it's like you hired a guy who literally came in there. He's like, yep, I don't know if I'm going to be good at my job. And we're just like, What are you talking about? You don't know if you're going to be good at your job. You're an NFL head coach, which is probably one of the hardest jobs outside of playing 100%. Quarterback on the football field. You have to organize. You're stepping in the middle of a season and have to install a game plan. And he was basically like, I guess that was like a legacy award for being a great Colts player for so long.
Great tackle.
Yeah, that the owner's like, yeah, I'm just going to give you a shot and then hire someone new next year instead of sliding in someone like Reggie Wayne, who's trying to be a head coach in the NFL. And he could have like showcased himself like, okay, maybe I step in, similar to how Bruce Arians did for the Colts when I believe their coach
Tony Dungy probably, or Chuck Pagano.
When Chuck Pagano was going through his cancer treatment, Bruce Arians stepped up for them and then got a head coaching job in Arizona because of it.
Yeah, I mean, they also had this guy, John Fox, who had made it to 2 Super Bowls, who could have definitely stepped in.
Yeah.
Won the Broncos a Super Bowl, so that was very questionable. Outside of that, we got the Texans, who fumbled the first overall pick, winning their last game, having Lovie Smith in the organization, still having that Deshaun Watson aura around them all of last year.
Yeah.
This year, they fired Lovie Smith. Okay. And then they hired DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the 49ers. They went out, they drafted their quarterback, CJ Stroud, moved up in the draft, drafted who they really wanted, which was Will Anderson, who's looking like a monster so far in preseason. And then got a couple of additions. They got Robert Woods. They got Dalton Schultz. Offensive line, they still have Laramie Tunsil. Defensive side of the ball, pretty good last year for a team that was that bad. They were top 12 defensively. So can they improve with that, with getting a best defensive player in the draft? Texans look like they're on the come up. Still don't think that they're a playoff team, but kind of like the Colts, going in the right direction.
Yeah, they're going in the right direction, and I think they'll be kind of similar to what the Patriots are, but with the young head coach. We're going to see some signs, and I think it's going to be very similar to Robert Saleh's first few years with the Jets, where you see something on defense where you're like, okay, I think that works. We're going to be very conservative with CJ Stroud because he's had some issues in the preseason, but he's going to start this year, which I like. Give him those real game reps so far this season. And then we're going to slowly open up the playbook for him. We still don't have any dynamic talent at wide receiver right now. We have Dalton Scholes, though, who's a reliable tight end. And then we have Dameon Pierce, who's a reliable running back. So I think they're going to have trouble scoring points, but you'll see some signs on defense where you're like, okay, that could be the start of something really good. And then we're going to have a quarterback on a rookie contract. So hit on some weapons next year in the draft, maybe sign some of these big money wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, someone who's not happy. And then boom, 3 or 4 years down the road, we're going to be a perennial contender.
100%. And they did look like they hit on their draft with Tank Dell. He's looking pretty promising so far, but you got players like Stephon Diggs. You got Mike Evans potentially out there. Keenan Allen could be available next year. So Go out there, spend money this next offseason, and just win some games. You
Yeah.
have the Cardinals have your pick, so don't make it a good one.
Yeah.
So I think they could win like 6 to 7 games.
Yeah.
And then the Titans. The Titans are probably the only team in this division that I think is trending downward. You have Ryan Tannehill. Looks like it's probably his last year there. Derrick Henry is entering age 30. And then you got D-Hop in the offseason, which is a nice signing. 2 years, $30 million. We like that. But their defense looks to have taken a step back. They had to cut a couple of key names last year. They got rid of Taylor Lehan. So their offensive line's probably taking a step back. What will we get from Derrick Henry? How much of D-Hop will we have? So a lot of questions there. Still think they'll be competitive because Mike Vrabel's a great head coach. But overall sentiment on the Titans.
Overall sentiment is I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck into a wild card spot, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had some injury issues and then kind of just wandered in the middle of the pack there in the AFC, because it is a loaded AFC this year. However, Mike Vrabel gives you that coaching advantage. You still have Jeffrey Simmons, who's an absolute monster on that defensive line. And I think the key piece is DeAndre Hopkins, because DeAndre Hopkins came back last year and he wasn't injured last year. He's, suspended for steroids because he was hopping on a cycle to recover from some injuries. So I think DeAndre Hopkins, if he stays healthy this year, is still a great wide receiver. And he proved that last year with some pretty terrible backups in Arizona. So I think if DeAndre Hopkins is good, this is a team that's going to play spoiler to a lot of these really good teams. Playoff pushes, because I still think they're capable of beating a team like the Bills. I think they're capable of beating a team like the Broncos, and I think they can give the Chiefs a hard time in the regular season. So the Titans are going to be a tough out week in and week out, but I think again they are trending a little bit downward. They had some injury issues with Treylon Burks last year. Can he stay healthy? And then Derrick Henry entering year 30. Is this going to be a year where we see a little bit of a downtrend from him? And is he going to be healthy? If Henry, Treylon Burks, and D-Hop are healthy, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs. But I think this could also be the year where next year, going to have to blow it up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Titans they're going to kind of be like the Patriots, where play some upset ball. Have some good defensive strategies, but overall, probably trending downward.